Exterminate! The Daleks continued to chant about the imminent extermination of humans within the research station, as if their bloodlust is reaching a boiling point. As these creatures were conversing, the camera feed on the prisoners showed them gathered around Joseph, with two sitting on the floor and another sitting beside him on the bench. Joseph was just about finished with his explanation of the turn of events that led him into this prison. Before this, they had told him of what had happened when one resisted their commands. Joseph looked up, shocked at these explanations. "They killed him?" he would ask, with one of them replying, "Yes, I'm afraid so." "So, how do we get out of here?" Joseph would ask, with the men looking around, then back down to the floor. "Oh, come on. There must be a way out." The Daleks had stopped their chanting to overhear what the prisoners were talking about.
"What should we do with them?" "We must find out what they know of our location." "Interrogation?" "Yes, interrogation." "What if they know nothing?" "Then they will be used like these primitive beings." "What of the alternative?" "We will use them nevertheless. They will be useful for infiltration." "What are we to do?" "For now, we shall find out what they know. Then these two will implant them with the microchip. They will then take us into the human settlement." "Humans are simple-minded." "Yes, they are inferior beings, only useful for a limited time." "Will we exterminate the ones we have turned to our side?" "No, the chips decay their minds. They will die in time." "We will have victory." "Yes, they will be exterminated in time. For now, we are not ready yet to impose our law upon humanity." "I will take the prisoners into the interrogation area."
Daniel at this time would be getting impatient, with nothing coming from the radio comlink, when he would get a notification from his rig, informing him of the arrival of the body at the morgue. With this information in hand, he would continue to try and raise the others, believing that the rest of the team had gone too deep to be contacted. He would send a request for an additional vehicle to be sent to the mountain base, so that he may be able to get advice from the scientists in the station, in hopes of getting into contact more efficiently. Back inside of the station, late at night, Hogan keeps working out the symbols, with his work becoming like his religion, taking the images wherever he may go, while eating meals, taking them to his bedside, even to the bathroom. He cannot put these out of his mind. Like an obsession, some of the scientists begin to experience insomnia, unable to rest, with some of them complaining about them, and others merely writing them off as jokes, claiming it all to be excitement of the work they were doing. Iando would seem immune to these effects, at least for now, perhaps resistant to whatever was plaguing the scientists and researchers. Hogan would be reminding himself about what Clifton had said about an equation when he would start to see the symbols all over his office, with them floating all around him, present wherever he would look to, until he would ask, "What does it all mean?" When the symbols would rush towards him, clinging to his skin, with each one giving off a stinging pain that pulsated through his body. Taking off his shirt, he would be fascinated by the symbols being present under his clothes, somehow, when he would collapse to the floor, and as he got up, he would see that he wasn't inside of his office anymore, but is now present inside of the marker chamber, and is now alone. However, he would look up towards a wall that has significant markings embedded within it. Did I do this? Hogan would ask himself. Inspecting the carvings, he would see the symbols of the marker within a code of some kind, when a light inside of Hogan's mind would begin to brighten, perhaps not one of white, yellowish color, but one of crimson red. Hogan would then say to himself, "Of course. It's like what unitology was saying all along. The marker. It brings about life. New life. I must inform Iondo."
Answer! You will answer the question!
Joseph and the others would be hooked up to a machine while standing inside of a transparent capsule, answering that he does not know the answer. After each answer, the Dalek would look over to its instruments.
Instrument shows a positive response. They do not know anything. The humans are here on their own terms, not ours. What is the purpose of your expedition to this planet?
Joseph would look into the eye stalk and say, We're here to look for a way to sustain our race. Resources are limited. Another man would say, "Stop this now. You can see he is worn out. Let us go."
The prisoners will remain silent until spoken to. Obey! Give your report. Stage 1 is complete. The humans have responded well to the questions. None were false. Stage 2 will begin now. The humans are to be implanted with the obedience chip. We will then use them to infiltrate the settlement and restore order. I obey. You two will take one prisoner at a time into the surgical unit and assist in assigning the units to them. Obey.
I obey. Joseph would see the two men taking the others into a separate room and would be audible in his resistance to the Daleks' will, demanding that they answer his questions now. However, with no response, they would enter the surgical unit adjacent to this room. Throughout the hours of torment, Joseph's sense of fear and dread would begin to grow as he could overhear the muffled screams of agony in the adjacent room. Iondo at this time would be walking down the corridor towards the marker chamber when Clifton would run over to him. "Iondo!" he would shout in a huff and a puff. Iondo, while looking worried, asks, "What's wrong, Clifton?" With a nervous Clifton telling Iondo, It's Hogan! He's starting to worry me. Take a look at this." "What am I looking at, Clifton?" Iondo would ask, with Clifton pointing towards a figure on the security feed. "It's Hogan. One of the guards said he broke into the chamber last night." "What's he doing?" Iondo would ask. "It's better if I show you." Clifton would walk with Iondo, showing him to the scratches on the wall. "What are these?" Iondo would ask, and Clifton would say, They look to be the symbols on the marker. Or at least, some of them." "Yes, but I mean, why are they listed on here. Suddenly, a group of scientists would burst into the room with a look of excitement on their tired faces. They would begin explaining that Hogan has reached a breakthrough, with Iando telling them, "Slow down. Now, where is Dr. Hogan?" They would bring Iando and Clifton to the laboratories to see the experiment. Walking away from the marker and through another set of corridors and around the corner, they would soon hear a bunch of chatter off in the distance, until seeing a crowd around someone moving in closer would bring them to the lab to see Hogan's work.
"Now, you can see what the marker brings to us. The marker is possible at creating life. Yes, it creates life. In a vision from the relic I had been presented with, it bestowed me with the knowledge to translate the symbols and create a code for DNA. And with said code, I have started to create an organism,"
Hogan would announce, but in a deranged state. Iando would walk in with Hogan saying in surprise,
"Iando, Clifton, I was just about to inform you of this breakthrough."
Iando would say, "Yes, Hogan, I am pleased that you had a breakthrough in your researches, but what is this I heard about a code?"
"Oh, the code. The equation for DNA. What this will create, I cannot be sure, but it's rather fascinating. What do you think? Should we follow through with it?"
Hogan would eagerly be awaiting the order. "Perhaps we should hold off on the creation of life until I can get a confirmation from the General, as our mission is to find a way to use the marker and its renewable energy to our species' advantage," Iando would say, but Clifton would tell him, "Even so, but this could be worth looking into as soon as possible. Who knows what this might bring?" Iando would add to the conversation, "Yes, I suppose. But that is what worries me. We have no idea what this code will even bring to us."
"Come on, Hogan. Are you telling me that you aren't even the slightest bit intrigued by all of this? Look, consider this. We use this area to create it and place it under a strict quarantine with the right restrictions, and we can make further research and still keep up with the General's demands,"
Hogan claims, with Iando taking a breath before saying,
"Oh, right.
But you will solely be responsible for anything that happens. However, you will need help. Clifton, you will aid in creating and upholding this lifeform. The pair of you will report anything of interest and step-by-step developments." The pair of them would agree and enthusiastically start working straight away. Within the compound, the Daleks are successful in placing the implants into the heads of the 3 surveyors, with the Dalek ushering the 2 men to bring in the last to be subjected to this form of slavery. Joseph would try to fight back, even though he is weak from the crash, but also due to the lack of food and water. The 2 men would bind his arms together, along with his legs, with their hands before bringing him into the surgical unit, placing him over a table with arm and leg restraints. They would place his arms into the holders and then his legs, securing him as they prepare for another to join their ranks. Joseph would look to the Dalek and ask it,
What are you going to do to me?"
The Dalek would reply,
"You will be like the rest of the humans, loyal only to Dalek control."
Joseph would then say,
"What do you mean? Dalek control?"
"You and the rest will follow orders to take us into your settlement. From there, we will grow in numbers, then purge your species from this world. From there, we will rebuild and travel outward to conquer the universe one world at a time. Your species will either work for food or water or to be exterminated."
Joseph would be disgusted by his impending fate and would resist with,
You can't just do this. This is insane. It's inhumane. Humanity is irrelevant. Humanity is weakness. Humanity is inferior.
The two men under Dalek control would then leave the room and prepare the others, leaving Joseph with the grueling task of sitting there to endure the pain of having a piece of him removed and an electrical chip stuck into his brain. The only noises over the humming of equipment outside that could be heard would be the muffled screams coming from the surgical unit. Iando would be prepared to leave the labs, believing Hogan and Clifton will not fail him, and praying that this will not be his undoing. Moving through the corridors, he would come across a group of people gathering near the morgue. Iando would investigate, moving closer to the group, whispering amongst themselves. "What's going on here?" Iando would ask, with one of them saying, "There has been an accident in the wilderness." "An accident?" "Someone has been hurt, haven't they?" Iando would ask, with the look on their faces making Iando's breaths feel as if they were carrying more weight. "One of our supervisors is dead, sir," the man would say in a sad undertone. "Dead? What happened? Are there any others hurt? Where is the origin of this accident? I'll need to inform the manager about this." Iando would ask in a flutter of words, shocked to hear of the grim news. The man would tell him of the crash, and that the manager knows of what he had been told, along with a request to send another vehicle out to the mountains. Iando would take this opportunity to go and speak with the station manager to further conclude this business, and orders the gathering to depart and continue with their operations. In the meantime, the Dalek had finished preparing Joseph, who was upright now and was prepared to comply with the orders to infiltrate the station, taking with them the Daleks, so that the filth of humanity may be wiped away, so that they may bring about an old order to this new world. Above them, however, Daniel was getting impatient, stepping out of the dormant crawler to find answers of his own within the cave system, when he would hear footsteps within the distance, down inside of the nearby ravine. He would issue out several hellos with no answers. He would go back to the crawler and try to get the men below him to answer with only static, replying to his questions of their arrival to the entrance of the cave system. He suddenly got a horrifying image inside of his head, with Joseph's mangled corpse rising to meet him with a saddened expression, telling him to leave, to warn of an impending danger. He would try to make sense of the horrific imagery when his head would begin to throb, with an unimaginable pain pulsating through his mind, feeling as if something is feasting on his brain, eating away at him. It would become too much for him, and he would shortly collapse from the abuse within the dark corners of his mind. The Daleks would begin preparing to leave the compound, with their advanced agents to seek, control, dominate, conquer, but most importantly, to exterminate. To move back up the shaft and through the cave system would take a great length of time for them to traverse through. However, the easy part was over, with them meeting the two agents out of the ravine. Now it was time to endure the harder task of climbing up the slopes and past the crashed shuttle. A few hours would pass, with the sun disappearing and night taking root within the world of Aegis VII, when Hogan and Clifton would successfully create an organism from the instructions of the marker. However, the organism would not respond to any pokes or prods, which would infuriate Hogan and frustrate Clifton. Clifton would present a tub of rich nutrients for the organism to bathe in, while the two of them would get some much needed rest, as they may have just made the biggest breakthroughs of their careers, one that may just set them up for life, and perhaps in death as well. Hogan would lock the organism away inside of a containment unit before locking the labs down for the night. Inside of the crawler, Daniel would start to hear voices, which had awoken him. Thinking that the team had made it back, he would unlock the doors and rush out to meet them, only to see them looking back at him in the cold night, with an even colder expression plastered all over their faces. He would also see a floating ball of light moving towards him. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a ball, but rather a Dalek.
Identify yourself. You will identify. Answer.
Daniel would look past the Dalek and begin calling out to the team members. Where the hell have you been? I've been out here waiting for you for God knows how long in the searing heat and the cold night. What is that thing? Well? The men would look at him with the same cold expression, with a hint of sadness.
Hold him. If you do not answer, you will be destroyed.
Daniel would look around to see the men complying with the directive. He would identify himself as the man in charge of these men.
You will not be harmed if you comply with the orders of the Daleks.
Daniel would start to think about what this thing was saying to him, offering him safety in exchange for him to do as they wish. However, he also starts to think that they had something to do with these men's cold expressions. But more importantly, to Joseph, the man that wanted nothing more to find a way to search for his long-lost relatives, now is a puppet for a new master. Joseph, you're here. I thought something happened to you. I'm glad to see you are okay, Daniel would say to Joseph. However, the only thing he would gain from this would be a response of a backhand from his former friend.
Obey without question, or be destroyed.
Daniel would say, Obey? Did these men obey? What did you do to them, you primitive dustbin? The Dalek wouldn't care at all for what he had to say, seeing him as more trouble than Daniel was worth. The Dalek would give its agents a new task. The men would grab a hold of Daniel as he resisted against their combined efforts in their cold embrace.
We will see who is primitive and who holds the power. You there, you will exterminate this primitive human.
Daniel would be thrown to the ground and held over the dusty terrain of rock, where Joseph would obey and begin to beat a helpless Daniel with a rock he picked up along the way to him. Daniel could not help but think of all the times they had spent together. The innocent boy assigned to his team is now beating him to death with a rock within the cold night of Aegis VII, with the Daleks baptizing him with Daniel's blood. As each hit of the blunt force trauma, with the Dalek overlooking the brutality of this attack as if it reveled in Daniel's pain. Joseph would be splattered with his blood with every hit, complete with the saddened and cold expression being the last thing Daniel would see before losing consciousness, as he laid still with no signs of resistance, and pieces of his skull laying nearby to the cavity, exposing the smushed part of his brain with a puddle of crimson blood growing cold. The Daleks would then order them to advance into the night, moving toward the crawler as the next step in their master plan was to begin and the downfall of humanity was to unfold. Joseph would pause for one moment, staring down at his former friend with the same expression as before.
A new race of Daleks.
Who are you? What are you?
Assist the humans.
They will try to take the marker. Don't let them.
Nothing can stop the Daleks.